I will just do a roll call online. So representing the council, Kanda is myself. Do we have anyone from DPH online? What about Department of Motor Vehicles?
Commissioner Jim Politis.
Jim. State Department of Ed. Desk, State Police. How are you? Aging Disability Services.
Good morning, Commissioner John Slifka.
And Division of Criminal Justice.
Good morning. I'm sorry I couldn't. My audio wasn't working for a moment. Nancy Chupak, TSRP, Office of the Chief State's Attorney.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a forum. Here is the agenda for today. So first agenda item is we'll address the meeting minutes, then we'll talk about Vision Zero Schools of Distinction. We'll have a discussion on MUTCD and signage that's allowed under the MUTCD. This is a request from Department of Public Health. We'll have a discussion presentation by UConn on ISA. We'll have some subcommittee updates, talk about our end of year report, and then next steps and public comment. The meeting minutes were sent out from our September 12th, 2025 meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved, Commissioner.
Jim, thank you. Do I have a second? Second from anyone in the room?
Second that, sir.
Hey. Okay, all those in favor of adopting the meeting minutes from September 12th? Aye.
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 All those opposed? None. Meeting minutes are adopted. Quickly just run through a few updates. So we did have the Vision Zero Schools of Distinction Award Ceremony on September 29th. 4 schools or school districts were recognized at the event. They were South Windsor, New Britain, Plymouth, and Wethersfield. This was a product of the work of this council, the subcommittees, especially the education subcommittee, and it was also came out of our legislature, who was very interested as well. So special thanks goes out to Bridget Moriarty, Safer School Coordinator, who oversees the program. So it's going to run again in 2026, and we want to see more schools and districts participate. So information can be found online on our Safer School website. So please be sure to spread the word. We'll also share that out to the council and the Council of Education live as well. And you see there, we had myself and Susan Logan was there from DPH to congratulate all the award winners. So as mentioned, one of the items that was requested was a discussion about the MUTCD. So Greg Palmer, Jordan Vogt, you guys are going to come up and walk us through what the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, discussion about the update to the MUTCD, some of the signage questions we've received about school zones or other types of signage that are allowed on the MUTCD. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Al.
Good morning, Greg Palmer here. So I'm going to kick this off. There we go, perfect. So signs, signals, and pavement markings on state roadways as it relates to pedestrians and bicyclist safety. There we go, much better, thank you. So where did the standards come from? The Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, MUTCD as we know it, is published by the Federal Highway Administration, and this is essentially like the Bible for traffic engineers. We don't just make up what signs we put on the roadways or determine our own color arrangements for markings. It comes from a national manual that we follow with the whole purpose to provide uniformity, consistency for traffic control devices throughout the nation. So if you're driving in Utah or you're driving in Connecticut, there's an expectation that what you see for a sign and how you drive through a signal is the same everywhere. Mostly for today, we'll be talking about signs, pavement markings, and traffic control signal devices. But there are other sections as well. As far as, how does Connecticut DOT adopt the MUTCD? Excuse me, there's the regulatory use that we have is for the general statutes that creates the Office of the State Traffic Administration and requires them to have an adoption process of regulations and then state regulations that are referenced on the screen that then it referenced the MUTCD itself as it gets updated. So what's in the MUTCD? There's 9 main parts that you can see on your screen here, and particularly for today, we're looking at parts 2, 3, 4, and 7. So it relates to signs, markings, signal devices, and school areas. So jumping into signs, there's 3 main types of signs. On the top row here is the regulatory. These are typically a combination of red and white or white and black. They are typically rectangular type signs with a few exceptions, like a stop sign being an octagon and a yield sign being a triangle, but often they are rectangular signs. And the main takeaway for regulatory is that these are enforceable signs. If you always have to do what they say, and if you don't, you could be ticketed. The second row here in the middle are warning signs. They are typically a yellow or a yellow-green type of sign, and they're warning. So they give you advance notice of something that could happen in front of you. It could be somewhat unexpected. They may not always be there. A pedestrian could be waiting to go into the crosswalk, but may not be there. If there is someone waiting to cross, you are required to yield to them. But if they're not, then you proceed. So it's a warning. It in itself is not enforceable, but could be enforceable depending on the circumstances. And then the last type of main sign here are guide signs. So these are directional type signs. They can be all sorts of colors, as you can see here, but interstate shields, blue and red combination, US route or state route shields, black and white combination, and then the green directional signs as well. Again, these are just the 3 main signs. There are several other types, but this is, the most important ones in my opinion. All right, so for the typical speed limit signing, OSTA, the Office of the State Traffic Administration, is responsible for the establishment of speed limits on all state and municipal roadways. What's the process for getting a different speed limit than it exists today? So the local traffic authority or the LTA would submit in writing to the Office of the State Traffic Administration a request to change the posted speed limit. Could be for a variety of reasons, but the OSTA would do an engineering up to that and make a recommendation. There is an alternative for municipalities to consider under Public Act 2128, which grants them the option to assume responsibility of establishing all posted speed limits on local roadways. But the key word there is all. They cannot only pick and choose certain roadways, they would have to take over all municipal roadway buildings. And I bring this up now because later on in the school zone, we will talk about it. All right, so you're driving along a roadway and there's a crosswalk. What type of signing do we have for approaches that are uncontrolled? Uncontrolled means there's not a signal at the location. There's not stop control at the location. It is uncontrolled for the main roadway approach, which you could proceed through if there's not a pedestrian there. So this is the type of signing you would expect to see along state roadways. On the left side of your screen is the what you would see in advance. So on the top portion of it, you see the pedestrian symbol with the ahead. And then on the top right portion, you see the school symbol with the ahead. So depending on the situation, if there is a school nearby or adjacent, there's some subject, engineering judgment that goes into that. But you could have it as a school symbol or a pedestrian symbol, one or the other. And the expectation is as you proceed where the crosswalk is, You then have the pedestrian signs or the school signs on both sides of the roadway. We used to only do them on the right side of the roadway. But now we do the left and the right to increase the conspicuity of the signs. It makes it more visible. I don't know if anyone drives at night very often, but once a week I'm driving home at like 10 p.m. and I go through a roadway that has multiple of these back to back. And the new types of sheeting with these delineator strips you can see on the signposts, they really jump out. It works really well. And having the left side, it just kind of draws your attention more to the crosswalk location. All right, so school zones or school areas, what are they? So if you're driving along a state roadway and you see the school symbol within a head, there's an expectation that you will be approaching a school. It may or may not have an uncontrolled crosswalk or a crosswalk within it that's also signed. But this sign kind of establishes that that school is coming up and that you should be on the lookout. There may be other signs to pay attention to depending on the type of school zone or school area. There are 3 types of school zones or areas, of which case we'll go through the signing for each. With the most basic being actually the last one listed there, non-regulatory school area warning. And then the top 2 above those, school zone ahead fines doubled zone, or a combination of a school zone ahead fines doubled and school speed limit blank blank miles per hour when flashing zone. The process for establishing school zones again goes to the municipality, the local traffic authority. They would review a checklist that was developed by OSTA, and then based on what the situation is, it could get submitted to traffic engineering or OSTA. Any of them that are not excuse me, requiring a change in the speed limit would come to traffic engineering for review. Any of the ones though that do propose a reduced speed limit within the zone would go to the Office of the State Traffic Administration. So the first type of zone is a school zone ahead fines doubled. The words used in these signs are very particular because we have a statute that requires them. So that's why the signing is the way it is. And what you do is you have the advanced yellow-green sign letting you know that the school is approaching. And then you have a school zone ahead fines doubled that begins at the limits of the school grounds or the area. That's where the fines doubled would begin. So any infractions in that zone would be doubled. And you are required to have an end school zone sign at the end of it as well. So this is for both directions of travel. And this is just a guide that we use when we develop our service memos. The other type that we have is the combination school zone ahead fines doubled zone and school speed limit when flashing zone. I know the top says when flashing, the only one that actually is required to have flashers is on state roadways. When there's a reduced speed limit on state roadways, we're required to have the when flashing. But when a municipality proposes it for a town roadway, it could be the static option like you see in the bottom left with the time limit. These ones would go to the Office of the State Traffic Administration since it has the reduced speed limit. And as far as the signs of how you would see them as you drive, there's the advanced school sign first, warning sign. Then there's the school speed limit when flashing sign. And whether or not it has a flash, it could if it's a state roadway, or would if it has a state roadway, and may not if it's a town roadway. And then you see the fines doubled sign when the zone begins. And then our last version is a non-regulatory type. It's the most basic one where you have the school limits, you maybe don't want to do the fines doubled for whatever reason, but you still want to make the public aware of the school zone coming up. Pass it to Jordan.
Hello, we're going to talk a little bit about the pedestrian safety zones. These are similar to school zones, and as opposed to a school, these are really there to help improve the safety of pedestrians and other vulnerable roadway users in downtown districts, community centers, and around surrounding hospitals. Similar to school zones, pedestrian safety zones can have speed limits that can be set as low as 20 miles an hour, the standard being 25 for all other roadways. If you are looking to request a pedestrian safety zone for state roadways, that would also be a written request submitted to the Office of State Traffic Administration. For municipal roadways, that would again go through the local traffic authority or your Board of Selectmen. For pedestrian safety zone, they have to be based on engineering studies. And even if they are on municipal roadways, we are still looking at having the town notify OSTA of the location and getting it approved. Generally, these pedestrian safety zones are accommodated by other speed reduction methods, which we will get into. As of right now, Stamford has recently applied. I know New Haven has plans for some areas. What one of these engineering studies looks like is from, you can see on the right, is Stamford's Vision Zero Action Plan. This is a planned pedestrian safety zone map for Stamford. Pedestrian safety zones became available in 2021. And the idea is to really create a sense of place for pedestrians to convert the roadway from being not a pedestrian encroaching onto the roadway, but for the vehicle to be encroaching onto the pedestrian's space. So while we're going to veer away a little bit of the MUTCD and kind of talk about federal highway safety countermeasures, these are all countermeasures that have been studied and have shown to have positive results through federal highway. There are many here, anywhere from speed cameras to variable speed limit signs to roundabouts, but we're really going to be talking mostly about crosswalk visibility enhancements, RRFBs and medians and pedestrian refuge islands, as well as some road diet and road diet alternatives. For crosswalk visibility enhancements, the state is using high visibility crosswalks. In a lot of towns, you may see transverse lines for crosswalks. Those are the two lines on either side of the crosswalk parallel to the crosswalk. Those are not considered high visibility. We use bar-type crosswalks, which are considered high visibility. And visibility is not only just pavement markings, but we're also talking about making sure that roadway vehicle users can see the entirety of the crosswalk around curves, making sure they're not in curves, making sure that there's no obstructions to the sides of the road where a pedestrian might be standing. And it also may include things like state law signs that are placed in the center of the roadway. State law signs are owned and maintained by the municipality. I know towns like Brantford put it right in their downtown areas to a good effect. As well as that, we're looking at improved lighting. Connecticut's Complete Streets Directive, which is very recent, and now requires crosswalks at all signalized intersections. So we are looking at every state project moving forward. All the approaches are going to have crosswalks with improved lighting. Lighting at crosswalks should be in front of the crosswalk to prevent silhouetting effect, so you don't get a person who is a black shadow of a human at night when you're approaching in your vehicle. It's important to have that lighting in front of the crosswalk. For enhanced signing and pavement markings, the state of Connecticut is now doubling up on their signs. Normally, you would have a pedestrian sign at a crosswalk on the right-hand side of the road. Now we do on both the left and right-hand side of the road. And we are now using a yellow-green retroreflective sheeting as opposed to standard yellow. Standard yellow is still MUTCD compliant, and you will see it out there in the field. But moving forward, basically all of the pedestrian-related signs are using that yellow-green retroreflective material. And then for enhanced signing and pavement markings, I covered that already. For the quick mention of the quick build directive, we are now encouraging municipalities to pursue temporary complete streets demonstration projects. on state roadways. You have an example here in the photos of Route 130 in Bridgeport, that's Fairfield Avenue. The town, in coordination with the state, installed these post delineators, and the idea is to create a temporary solution of bump outs for the crosswalks. But the idea is if they are successful, they can come back later and install a permanent solution. There are also other opportunities for quick builds. Kimberly Ave closure in East Haven just went into effect yesterday. And basically they are closing down a town roadway at a state intersection, and with the idea to reduce crashes at that location. There'll be a 90-day test, and at the end of the test, they will reevaluate and see if a permanent solution can be pursued there. Other things that can be quick build directives, protected bike lanes, pedestrian crossings, road diets, curb extensions, wayfinding signage, and other traffic calming measures. Really, the idea is to get something out in the field quickly and to allow for future opportunity as a proven safety measure that can be long term. For rectangular rapid flashing beacons, a great example is in the bottom left. You can see in action. These can reduce pedestrian crashes up to 47%. But the biggest importance is it increases motorist yield rates up to 98%. RFBs are pedestrian actuated. When a pedestrian pushes the button, the warning lights come on and they'll get a voice message. And the idea is that to increase the visibility of the crossing so that vehicles who typically drive the roadway and aren't expecting pedestrians can see those flashing lights and slow down and stop. With the Complete Streets Directive, illumination is now required on all state crosswalks. So new designs are coming in which include illuminators on the RRFB itself to really get that pedestrian lighting at the crosswalk. There are other options like doing overhead lighting that is also viable. RRFBs can be installed under state project or by a municipality. The CTDOT allows municipalities to install RRFBs on state roadways under encroachment permit. RRFBs are owned and maintained by the municipality, but there are often grant opportunities to support municipal installations. I think more often than not, I see funding go through LOTSIP for RRFBs. Currently, there are about 100 RRFBs in the state, with another about 75 either planned or considered throughout. And a good point is these are great not just for your downtown centers, but they can also be used in rural locations such as Route 191, Broadbrook Road in Enfield, which I believe has a pedestrian trail connection here. Pedestrian refuge islands and medians. So these can also reduce pedestrian crashes between 46 and 56%. The idea is to, instead of a pedestrian crossing the roadway in a single crossing where they have to look left and right at the same time and wait for a gap, a pedestrian refuge island or a median can allow pedestrians to cross the road one side at a time. You go left, you cross the road, you go right, you cross the road. And that is much easier for pedestrians. The compliance of crossing out a crosswalk is much higher. And there are also offset design options. So the idea here, as you can see in the second photo, is you have one crosswalk offset from the other in the direction of the vehicle travel. So a pedestrian crossing the roadway, Center Island, are then turned to face traffic. And the idea is that a pedestrian facing traffic is more likely to be looking out for vehicles and less likely to step out into the roadway in front of a moving vehicle. These can be combined with other mitigation efforts. So here is Route 68 in West Main Street in Cheshire. This was combined with a hawk or a pedestrian hybrid beacon. And aside from a couple cyclists being faster than vehicles are expecting. The compliance rate is near 100% here for vehicles yielding. Next, we'll talk about road diets. Benefit of road diets, we're looking at 20 to 50% reduction in total crashes. The idea of a road diet is taking a 4-lane roadway and reducing it down to 3 lanes, one lane in each direction and a center 2-way left turn lane. What this does is it allows for traffic calming with more consistent speeds. The people who are driving extra fast, often on a 4-lane roadway, are in conflict with vehicles turning left. So what winds up happening is you get a lot of weaving traffic, a lot of rear ends, a lot of side swipes, and people turning left have to deal with 2 lanes of travel. And oftentimes you get angle crashes from that second lane. With a center 2-way left turn lane, the person turning left no longer has to deal with the pressure of vehicles behind them. They're less likely to get rear-ended. And you are allowing room not only for vehicles to have a safer mode of travel, you're giving room to other roadway users. So that would be cyclists, bicycle lanes, and on-street parking as potential options. In 2021, the CTDOT completed their statewide road diet feasibility study, which looked at all 4-lane roadways in the state of Connecticut and made generalized feasibility recommendations for what roads can be reduced in size. We at Traffic Engineering are implementing these road diets when we can through our resurfacing project in coordination with municipalities. This is Route 187 on Blue Hills Avenue in Bloomfield. This one may even, the idea was to do the road diet, and the town would then come in at a later date and add in bicycle lanes. We're also looking at road diets for Whitney Avenue on Route 707, State Road 707 in Hamden. And a more recent thing that has been being implemented by traffic is buffered shoulders. So the idea of buffered shoulder, first off, shoulders are a good thing. They allow vehicles, they allow bypass of vehicles, they allow emergency vehicles to pull onto the side of the road where they have more space. But what wide shoulders do and a wide roadway does is allows vehicles to perceive that they can drive faster. So the idea of a buffered shoulder is to visually restrict the roadway width so that traveling vehicles feel they no longer have that opportunity to speed. So you get slower vehicle speeds and you are providing a space for vulnerable roadway users, such as your cyclists, such as your pedestrians, who now have a more clearly defined area. We are implementing these also through the CT resurfacing projects. This is Route 162, Bridgeport Avenue in Milford. And there are also looking at, there's also been other locations where it's been implemented, such as Route 100 in East Haven and Route 63 in Bethany. Generally, we are looking to install these when you have significant lengths of roadway where shoulders are in excess of 7 feet or more.
The last thing we have is public education. So first of all, we have driver's education that all motorists need to go through and get their license. So they're supposed to learn the typical signs along the road, and the rules of the road through that process. And DOT has worked with DMV on updates to their manuals. We'll continue to do so for that. But as we have new and innovative treatments, how do we message that to get to the public more? And you can do educational materials with flyers and brochures. The right side of your screen is a brochure that was developed for concurrent chest rephasing. The bottom part is a similar topic, but as a flyer instead of a brochure. And we can also have tools such as social media outreach or educational campaigns. And I know this says just for new and innovative treatments, but really, if the public needs reminders, we can use these same tools to try to enforce that more and get that word out there. So this is what we have so far for public education. We have certain topics to improve on.
Any questions? Can you look online if any of the public?
Not seeing any raised hands right now.
I do have one question. So I know a lot of people get confused by the school zone signage. They think that if there's a sign up saying school ahead, that means school zone, which means there's reduced speeds, but it all ties into the speed camera program. Is a default of essentially if you want to install a speed camera in a school zone, you don't have to demonstrate the speeding issues or the crashes occurring in there like you do at other locations. So they think that if there's a school there, they automatically is automatically deemed a school zone. Is there anything that they need to demonstrate when they want to pursue an actual statutory school zone or regulatory school zone? You know?
So the school zone itself, is when you implement that fines doubled sign, that to us is like with the threshold of getting to that. And when it doesn't have a, reduced speed limit associated with it, it could really just be the local traffic authority request to us and covered by an existing statute. And then when they want to pursue that lower speed limit is when they're going to need to submit to OSTA to get that portion approved, unless they have that municipal approval to take on all speed limits on municipal roadways. I mean, it might be good that people think that they have, automatic or lower speed limits within school areas, in my opinion. But technically, they would just be held to the current posted speed limit if it wasn't reduced.
And then what's been the reaction to some of the quick builds from any of the communities in which they've been installed,
They're still pretty new. We're in contact with Bridgeport on Route 130 as far as those, and I mean, they seemed happy with what we've seen so far. I know some of the businesses nearby haven't exactly been happy with like a lack of unloading area. They previously had somewhere to unload, so they've been trying to get us to minimize those zones a little bit. That's been the main quick build. I haven't really heard any negative feedback personally yet, but and then Route 80 and New Haven was just installed 2 days ago.
Yeah, do you want to tell?
I thought I'd see it in the news by now, but I haven't. So I'm pretty happy so far with that aspect.
Yeah, can you just share what that project was?
I believe it's gonna be discussed later on,
Okay.
but Route 80 in New Haven was revised to include median islands and speed tables along the corridor in an effort to kind of curtail some of the high speeds that they were seeing. The median islands went in about a month or two ago, and the first speed table went in as a test speed table 2 days ago. As of right now, we haven't had any negative feedback on the new speed table. The New Haven is going to take the winter to evaluate, and in the springtime, they will determine if the speed table that was installed was adequate or if adjustments need to be made. And then the additional 3 speed tables that are planned on the corridor will be installed in the spring based on that evaluation. As of right now, I haven't seen any negative feedback, and I've been looking for it.
That project had a few other elements too. It was doing illumination within the new islands also to help the lighting in the area. The islands themselves are going to help to narrow the roadway a bit to hopefully slow down traffic more. And they really actually were pursuing, I don't know if this part's constructed yet, a pretty critical sidewalk connection on the north side of Route 80 from a housing area to the plaza that has, I think, like a Walmart and such in there. It was a heavily traveled area that had lacking sidewalk and people were crossing mid-block. So with that, they're building the sidewalk. They're gonna make the pedestrian crossing more perpendicular, and it really should be a overall improvement for the area.
Are you getting any pushback or any comment from putting those delineators to expand that pedestrian area? I noticed I see them, I drove through Hartford yesterday in Capitol Avenue, I saw a bunch of bump outs, but as far as winter maintenance and stuff like that, how do they deal with that?
Also through the quick build process, on state roadways, the quick build starts, I think, April 1st and it ends the end of November, or the end of October. I'm forgetting it in my head exactly, but essentially under the quick build process, those can't remain through the winter. Just because we don't want it to impact our plowing operations.
Okay.
As far as some of the other ones, maybe in Hartford or other towns, they're not part of our quick build process. It's not on a state roadway, so they may have a different approach on those. But I know for our quick builds, at least, the flexible post delineators usually have to go under that process. And as far as negative or pushback on that, none that I've heard from the public, and Bridgeport is still pretty new. That really has been the only one I've been involved in so far, but I haven't really heard much on that. And the town becomes responsible for, fixing them as they get knocked down and such. So I'm sure just with more time, we'll maybe hear more on that end, but I'm hopeful that they will work out because as Jordan pointed out earlier, narrowing the roadway, getting the pedestrians out, blocking off that parking so you can improve sight distances between motorists and pedestrians works. Then, the post delineators are just the first step. The second step is like a streetscape pursued by the town that they can revise the curbing itself. It's no longer flexible. It's a physical curve. The island's out further. So this is more like a test to see how successful it is first. So, hoping for the future on that.
Do they send them to you when they do that? When towns try to incorporate that on their local roadway system, and then you send recommendations, hey, they're gonna put in flexibles?
Not on local roadway
No.
systems, but on the state roadway system, they have to go through, there's a quick build review team, and then they would need an encroachment permit in order for the installation afterward. So there is a process in play for that where we don't just willy-nilly let them go do whatever they want on the state roadway system.
Yeah, it's similar to an expedited encroachment permit
Okay,
process.
and on local roads, they don't have to follow any
Yeah, the
guidance?
state doesn't really have jurisdiction. on the local
Okay.
roadway system.
All right.
Thank you, guys. Next presentation, so we're gonna have a presentation on the ISA report that the council has to provide to the legislature next month. And so UConn and the Safety Research Center there was instrumental in getting this academic literature review completed. They prepared the report for our consideration. And so Dr. Johnson is going to kick it off. So you give me.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? So I'm Eric Jackson. I'm the executive director of the Connecticut Transportation Institute here at the University of Connecticut. So with us, I have Elena Orlova. She was one of our research engineers that drafted the report, and I will credit her. She did all of the information in the report itself. I just got lucky enough to be able to review it for her and then send it over to the council. So I'm going to turn it over to Elena, and I'll be around also to help with questions if any arise.
Yeah, thank you very much, Eric. I appreciate the trust, and I will do my best to clearly present the key findings from my work on ISA. And before I actually move past the title slide, I want to highlight one important point. In both the report and in today's presentation, we are talking only about active ISA devices, systems that physically limit acceleration. Because automakers often market their safety features as intelligent speed assistance, but those are always advisory or passive systems, not active ones. And at this time, no car manufacturer offers true active ISA, and only devices that can physically limit speed are available through the aftermarket. And those are the systems we will be discussing today. Can we see the next slide? Yeah, thank you. So Section 22 of Public Act 25-65 gave this project a very clear structure. It asked us to look at 4 things: And those 4 items became the backbone of the report. First, we had to examine the effectiveness of active ISA, whether solid evidence shows that it actually changes driving behavior and improves safety. Second, we needed to review the different types of ISA devices and understand what is available on the market today. We were also asked to estimate the costs of implementation based on what real pilots and vendors report. And fourth, we had to look at accuracy, reliability, and temper resistance, essentially whether these devices work as intended in everyday and unsupervised conditions. These 4 points define the flow of today's presentation as well. The first large pilots go back roughly 25 years, and from very beginning, they all showed the same pattern. Once ISA physically limits acceleration, speeding drops almost immediately. For example, in Sweden, average urban speeds went down by about 3 to 4 kilometers per hour, which actually translated into roughly a 20% reduction in serious crashes. In Finland, on winter roads, ISA practically eliminated speeding altogether. Even the more severe violations dropped to almost zero. In Belgium, speeding on higher speed rural roads dropped noticeably, especially in the 90-kilometer zones, where it fell from about 13% to around 4%. And in the Netherlands, where ISA was tested on repeat speed offenders, their speeds decreased clearly, especially on faster roads. And this is an important point and conclusion of this study, once the system was turned off, the offenders returned to their old speeds and their previous driving behavior. Next slide. The 2 most complete and up-to-date pilots are London and New York. In London, ISA was installed on 2 bus roads operating in 20 and 30 mile per hour zones. The results were pretty clear, and 20-mile zones speeding dropped from about 18% of driver time down to just 1 to 3%. And in the 30-mile zones, speeding went to almost to zero. In New York, ISA was installed on about 500 city vehicles and on 25 mile per hour streets, speeding went down by about 50%. And on 50 mile per hour roads, it went down by about 82%, which sounds quite significant. So even the drivers who used to speed a lot show the same pattern, big reductions. Both pilots point to the same conclusion. When ISA is active, severe speeding drops by tens of %, and it works across a large mixed urban fleet with no major operational downsides. Active ISA can work in a couple of different ways. The most common approach is a throttle limiter, which means once the vehicle reaches the speed limit, the system simply doesn't allow more acceleration. But the driver still can brakes and steers normally. Throttle limiters used in London, New York City, and most commercial systems in the United States. The only real limitation is that the system cannot apply braking or halt the vehicle on downhill segments. It can only limit acceleration. Because of that, brief overspeeding on steep declines is possible if the driver allows it. And there is also the haptic pedal approach. The pedal becomes harder to push when the speed limit is reached. But this method appeared mostly in early European pilots, but technology still exists, so I just put it there. And all active ISA systems include an override button. It's there for unusual or emergency situations, and it lets the driver take full control and accelerate for a few seconds. But every override is recorded in the vehicle's telematics, so drivers can't use it too often without having to explain why they do so. So within this override button, the system keeps its safety effect, but the driver still has control in any situation, and many studies point to this as an important factor for drivers' acceptance. All active ISA systems rely on some way of knowing the correct speed limit, and most use GPS and digital maps. Some use traffic sign recognition, and this brings us to the second major limitation. Map accuracy matters, and it also affects driver acceptance, because if the system glitches, drivers lose patience with it quickly. In the United States, there are currently no factory-installed active ISA. Automakers offer only advisory or passive versions, and drivers can turn them off at any time. So, as I said, the only true active ISA available today comes from the aftermarket. And there are a few main providers. I contacted each of them and requested pricing. Some did not respond, and some lost interest in communication once I clarified that it was a research inquiry, not an actual procurement request. And in the end, I received a clear quote only from Lifesaver. They offer their device on a subscription basis. The cost ranges from $75 to $150 per month, depending on several factors: installation complexity, fleet size, contract duration, and so on. So overall, there is a very little publicly available cost information. The London pilot only described the system as a reasonable cost measure, and New York spent about $1,500 per vehicle for the pilot. So unfortunately, that is all I was able to find regarding pricing. That's extremely limited type of information. Active ISA works well in practice, but its accuracy depends on two things. First, how precise the GPS positioning is, and second, how accurate and up-to-date the digital speed maps are. Because accuracy can drop if GPS briefly shifts position, or when the map data is outdated, especially at transitions between speed zones. So one more time, map accuracy matters. In terms of reliability, large pilots show that the technology holds up well in real fleet operations. London ran ISA on full bus routes for months, and New York logged almost 3 million ISA-enabled miles without widespread failures. And finally, tamper resistance. Active ISA devices use sealed hardware, locked configuration settings, and telematics that record anything unusual, including every override activation. And these protections make it hard to tamper with the system and make it clear when something unusual happens. And there are some conclusions. So across all major pilots, active ISA consistently cuts severe speeding by 50% or more, and it does so without creating operational problems. The technology is mature and already available on the market, and the cost is relatively low. There are two main limitations. Systems rely on accurate digital maps, and they can't apply braking. So brief overspeeding on downhill segments is still possible. But overall, ISA has proven reliable, hard to tamper with, and well suited for everyday fleet use. So the bottom line is Active ISA is technically ready, cost feasible, and capable of delivering meaningful safety benefits. The final slide shows our contact information, my email and Dr. Jackson's email. We will be happy to answer any questions you may have after the meeting, and I hope we have a little time for questions right now. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have Jim Blighty from DMV has his hand raised.
Thanks, Commissioner. Elena, thank you very much. Very good work and very informative. I appreciate it. I just wanted to clarify your study or your look at the comprehensive studies in London and New York City. And I just wanted to make sure that I understood those pilots were for buses and for state or municipal fleets, not for the general population, correct? So those were
Absolutely correct.
Okay.
Absolutely correct. Yeah, it was buses in London and state vehicles in New York.
Okay, so that was so there wouldn't have been any I would call it downstream study of implementation to the general population or costs having to do with that would have applied.
Not yet, unfortunately. Yeah, the idea of general implementation is pretty new. So I don't think any country in the world implemented this on general basis. So yeah, that's something we need to consider.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Thanks, Commissioner.
Yeah, I think in California, the governor vetoed a bill that would have required that, like the haptics in all vehicles. But I know in a couple of the other states, they have the legislation or the laws now that will require it for extreme speeders. As essentially a penalty, right? So Liz Keys here.
Yeah, Jim's question kind of leads into my question because I'm interested to hear more about the depth study that did it among that population of extreme speeders. I know you referenced how a lot of those extreme speeders, once it was removed from their vehicle, they went right back to their old extreme speeding ways. And also I think in the report, there was a reference to the fact that there was a lot of use of the override. So I'm kind of interested in how that population used, what their use of the device was different from, the bus operators and the municipal employees who were, how that maybe have, different effects. So I don't know if you want to say a little bit more about that, Elena.
Well, yeah, if we're talking about if the drivers actually hate ISA, usually no. And most resistance happens before trying it. And once people actually drive with ISA for a while, acceptance goes up. And the only thing drivers truly dislike is bad map accuracy. Because if the system shows it the wrong limit, trust drops fast. And there were two types of conclusions in the studies I explored. So, yeah, one type was most of the drivers wanted to keep the system actually even after the pilot. But there was one study in the Netherlands with repeated offenders, and yeah, their conclusion was the offenders returned to their previous behavior. So they don't really respect the system and the changes.
And, sorry, and I was just about the override use, that was very frequent.
Liz, are you going to be at?
I am.
So one thing just to flag, I do have a question for you, Elena, but before I get to my question is, there's going to be a meeting next week on this study to go into further detail for council members and for the group that worked on this. So one question I had, you brought up numerous times the digital map accuracy, which we've actually seen here at Connecticut DOT So statewide Department of Administrative Services manages a lot of the fleet vehicles that are in use by state agencies. And they have one system installed that tracks speed, seatbelt usage, but it does depend on digital map accuracy. And we've encountered numerous instances where it says the speed limit was X, but in reality, the individual was driving on a parallel road or a different road, and the speed limit was something else. So if there was a local road adjacent to a limited access highway, they may have been traveling on the limited access highway at highway speeds, but the GPS thought they were on the local road. And so they got flagged as extreme speeding in the system. And so I'm wondering, how often do these map providers actually update it? Where do they pull the information from? And it seems like that's a huge hurdle that needs to be overcome. Because if we're encountering it just in a small fleet of vehicles, it seems like it'd be a huge problem to roll it out to a wider scale if that's not correct.
Guilford.
I would say that, yeah, I would say there is a need to work with a vendor closely because they can push updates. So yeah, that's something we also should discuss with the vendor.
Got a couple questions in the room here. Al?
Thanks, Elena. This is a really informative. One question, I have a couple questions, but one is about installation. If, let's say, Connecticut decided 6 months from now, we're going to require this for people who get a second speeding offense in a year or whatever it is there a network, or how would the vendors be able to set up the network of places where people can get the devices installed?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I can go back to vendor Lifesaver and ask them directly what would be their proposal, because actually that's the company which offered devices for offenders in Virginia, I believe. So probably they already experienced in that. So I'm not sure I can answer your question right now, but I can just go back to vendors.
That's helpful. And I guess my other question is similar to the commissioners about if there are those places that limited access highway parallel to a local road. It seems like from an ISA perspective, if they erred on the side of the higher speed, it wouldn't be as problematic. Rather, like if you're on a 55-mile-an-hour road next to a 25-mile-an-hour road, you don't want to be on the 55-mile-an-hour road where it's forcing you to go 25. Obviously, we don't want people going 55 in the local road either, but it seems like from the ISA perspective, that wouldn't be as bad. Is that, do you know, I guess, if they err on the side of the higher limit from the restrictions?
Well, that's why probably GPS positioning is a very important thing. Yeah.
Thanks.
Katie?
How long was the program before they went back to their regular driving behavior? Like, was the pilot a year, 6 months?
Yeah, it was a few months in London and around a year in New York City.
For the other studies where the drivers went back to their normal behaviors?
Usually the average time of the study is around 6 months.
Any other questions?
To piggyback on what people have said in terms of the digital mapping and the GPS, Elena, was there any experience, because a lot of time we'll put in temporary speed limits, especially in our work zone areas. And I just got a new car and it tells me what the speed limit is, and it can kind of tailor me. I do notice that it has an error on I'm looking at the speed limit, but I see a sign that says something different. So I don't know how that system would be updated because of that, because a lot of times we do have reduced speed zone areas.
Well, with the temporary, like work zones, for example, with the temporary limits, it's necessary to add the speed limits manually. Unfortunately, it's the only way to keep the correct information within the system.
So back in 2021, when we worked on the legislation to allow municipal governments to set their own speed limits if they want to, that was one of the big pushes on our end. Is we support municipalities setting their own speed limits on all of their local roads. However, they need to share with OSTA and DOT what those speed limits are changed to, so that we can have one comprehensive data set of all speed limits across the entire state, because we want map providers to be able to pull from somewhere. And so that's been a real push of ours, is to at least have something out there mapped out everywhere of all the speed limits, so make it easier, but it doesn't account for necessarily the temporary always. OSTA will do the temporary posted, but not necessarily on locals. Seeing nothing else, Elena and Dr. Jackson, thank you very much. I know we're going to have further conversations on this before we submit it to the legislature. So thank you for the hard work on this.
Thank you.
Next, I'm going to ask our 4 subcommittees to provide updates on their work. So I know at the last meeting, we asked each subcommittee to work towards finalizing areas of focus for the year, as well as any policy recommendations they're intending to put forward to the council. So the first group is engineering, and so that's Natasha Fatu here in the room and Chuck Carlos online. So Natasha, over to you.
Good morning. Engineering, the engineering subcommittee was asked to review 2 topics. The first one I'll go over was the complete streets policy and implementation as part of our projects. We were to review the policy and how it was implemented and going and working today, and the continued focus on vulnerable road users. Generally, the comments that we received were positive. We talked with municipalities, COGS, consultants, and some developers, and as well as practitioners. They were part of our sample group to provide these comments. So I wanted to share a few of those comments here. The complete streets policy went into effect in 2023 and basically required any projects that were state or federally funded to incorporate facilities for all road users. So pedestrian facilities, bike facilities, and considerations for transit. Initially, the projects that were already in design or close to the design approval process struggled a little bit to incorporate these facilities because it had gone through a lot of the design. So there were initial hiccups, concerns from the designers. But as we have worked through this process, we've noticed that there has been a complete mindset shift. And that's why I highlighted that here. Is now the default when designing, and it's helpful. The designers are working with municipalities and COGS to bring concerns and issues up earlier in the design process so they can account for it. And that was something that was across the board, all of the comments that we received, that they did recognize there has been a mindset shift to now focus on complete streets. Another comment we received was the intersection control evaluation policy is another a mechanism that includes complete streets elements to further promote this consideration early in the design process. Some of the comment that came out was that more coordination with the transit in advance has been helpful to help for the projects coming out, and that the design exceptions process has evolved. And what that means is earlier in if a project cannot meet some of the requirements to provide the pedestrian, bike, or transit facility, they can go for a design exception. And with this evolvement then is that there are many less projects that are going through the design exception. So many people are very happy about that. We did get some negative that some municipalities have infrastructure with maintenance concerns, especially when sidewalks are installed or additional features that maybe the city is now required or municipality is now required to maintain. So we're working through that, but they understand the reasoning for it, but they still do have some of those maintenance concerns. And one thing that was kind of, I think is a good thing, is that more people would like to see how Complete Streets can be expanded to more project types. So we are encouraging municipalities to incorporate the Complete Streets policy that we have, and that even though it's for state and federally funded projects, it doesn't mean that they can't use it for the projects that are occurring in their municipalities. So this Complete Streets policy implementation has been viewed very positively. Next slide. The next thing we were asked to review was the centerline rumble strip policy. This is a policy that we came up with it for 2024. It was required, and it's to install centerline rumble strips and as many roads that meet the criteria for centerline rumble strips, especially through our VIP project. We are vendor in place maintenance resurfacing project. We are looking at all the roads that are getting repaved in the year and identifying locations that could include more centerline rumble strips. I want to go over the comments and then I'll go over the crash data. We were asked to look at the crash data for the lane departure and head-on crashes for these locations. Some of the comments were when we hold public meeting, when we are installing new centerline rumble strips, we will hold a public information meeting for that municipality to inform them that new centerline rumble strips are coming to their particular location. We have found that very few people attend these meetings. I'm hoping that's a good sign that as they're being implemented more, that there's less concern about them being installed. We are potentially revising our criteria to allow for more locations to be included based on the positive comments that we've received, that more people want to see these centerline rumble strips. So the department's revising some of our criteria. Another comment we got was consideration of centerline rumble strips on more local roads. So we're encouraging municipalities to install them where it meets the criteria. We made a project to install these on appropriate roadway types. And then another comment, which I was surprised, and this did come from some pedestrian and bike advocates, was consider implementing the sinusoidal rumble strip on shoulders with a consideration for the bicyclists. So I was surprised to hear that a lot of people do find the centerline rumble strips effective, and they want to see more of them, and also to include it on the edge lines. So we worked with UConn to help look at the centerline rumble strip crash information. They actually helped develop some crash modification factors, and that's what this table is here. What they did is they looked at, they did a naive before and after review of where the centerline rumble strips were installed. They typically did about 2 to 3 years based on when the centerline was installed, but they wanted to look at as many locations as possible. So they reviewed about 80 miles of the centerline rumble strips that were installed in 2019 and 2020. And based on that, they came up with the crash modification factors that you see here. What this is telling us is that in many cases, there was a decrease in crashes. The only exception was there was a slight increase in fatal and serious injury crashes, but that was not statistically significant. The big ones here to note are that overall, there was a 12% decrease, and it was statistically significant, as well as the vest property damage. Only fixed object and roadway departure crashes were statistically significant increases with the installation of the centerline rumble strip. And so I think that we would like to continue including centerline rumble strips, and the department in traffic engineering will be reviewing locations to potentially include also along the edge line as well. Next slide, please. So that was our review. Our recommendations for the legislative session or the next legislative year remain the same. designation of safety corridors on public roadways, free or reduced cost for driver's education for new student drivers, municipal complete streets plans, and we're putting more effort a little on that because of the findings from the complete streets policy review, funding for our Vision Zero initiatives, and this we highlighted because a lot of the recommendations that come out, we've heard municipalities or concerns from others that how are they going to implement these if they become mandated, especially like the free reduced cost for driver's education. And so we think that's a big factor, is that there needs to be some kind of funding for the Vision Zero initiatives. And then we're also endorsing the motorcycle helmet law and lowering blood alcohol content. For hearing.
Thank you. Why don't we go next to enforcement subcommittee? Karen?
Very thorough, Natasha. I'm not as thorough as you. Printed out report. So, Vision Zero was tasked with looking at infraction adjudication process for work zones and slow down, move over. I have to give a lot of credit to a couple of people that I try to work very closely with. Two of them from the Department of Motor Vehicles. Was Matthew Montefico and Susan Archibald. And I also worked with the Judicial Branch Statistics Unit, Joseph Grealish, who provided a lot of data on a lot of statistics. So the greatest concern was obviously that are they being cited in work zones, and are all of the statutory laws that apply to work zones as far as endangerment of highway workers and fine stubble and things like that, what's happening with those as they go through the whole court process. So we'll go to the next one. This is specifically on this, on the endangerment of highway worker and slow down, move over under these charges. And you can see, hopefully everybody can see that what's going on as far as whether it's transferred to the court, if it's guilty under the Criminal Infraction Bureau and the NALI, and then Criminal Infraction Bureau pending. This is just a graphical representation of what I was able to get out of the data. I have all of the data to back this up. So Elizabeth, I know you're probably interested in some of it, so I'm only able to give that to you. Our biggest concern that came through in the committee when we started looking at these was the knowledge and the reasoning for the knowledge. And that question has to be delved into a little bit more because there's a lot of factors that go into a knowledge. So we have to see exactly what those factors are. A lot of times it has to do with arrangements that the defendant and the prosecution come with. We did notice I have been graciously given by Stacy Manware. We're watching the e-hearings that are going on right now. For those that don't know, they're doing e-hearings to try to make the process go more efficiently and get through these things quickly. And right now, e-hearings apply to all CDL drivers only. And what we're seeing in some of the hearings are they're CDL drivers, but the infraction was in your passenger vehicle or something like that. It wasn't why they were driving a commercial vehicle. So there's been some nollies. The ones Juliet Little and I are most concerned with is if law enforcement doesn't come to the e-hearings and present their case, it automatically is nollied because they're not providing evidence. Or the defendant, if he doesn't come, then there's action taken by the court that goes to the Commissioner of Motor Vehicles, and then the Commissioner of Motor Vehicles can act on that as well. But this is still a concern. I know, Garrett, we've been talking about this, and maybe we have to delve into this a little bit more detail as far as what this process is. So this is the first just a set of stats that we had. The next one. This is Superior Court stats. So this is the disposition category for each type. So you have guilty, not guilty, suspended, nollied, and pending. So you could see that it seems like the dynamics are shifting a bit on terms of the nollied decreasing. So, but I think that, like we had said before, I mean, you're seeing a little bit different, and the suspended license, it seems like in 2025, there seems to be a shift in the dynamic. So I'm hoping if we move to e-hearings for all infractions, and also there seems to be more aggressive action being taken by the attorney, the prosecuting side, on not letting them go as they say. So that's on this side. This is all available, and Aaron has a whole presentation. Go ahead, Aaron, on the next one. So work zone traffic enforcement trends. So we know that we are in that work zone automated enforcement realm, and we are going to be starting those, I think, in January, the additional sites and everything like that. And the data collection that they're getting through the cameras and through the systems. But recent tone, it says, indicate that recent trends show increased use of technology and targeted patrols and work zone traffic enforcement. So there is more aggressive action being taken in these areas. Okay, on this, you can see this is some of what we've gotten on the charges and the tickets and the work zones. Guilty and then nollied. You could see another dramatic shift where you're not seeing a lot of nollie anymore. So I suspect that's what's happening, is that if you are cited with these infractions, the full court system is in support, and you're getting law enforcement, you're getting everyone that has the evidentiary information for them to be into the court system. So that's, I think, a positive thing. We aren't really into the automated traffic enforcement realm yet, so it should be interesting in the future to maybe analyze how that process is going. Middletown, and Elizabeth, you were in that. We had Chief Eric Costa present, and it was open to everybody, and it was pretty enlightening. And Middletown is really, really being aggressive on their push when these infractions occur, these citations occur, to make sure that the full weight of the law is given. Especially our biggest concern in enforcement, and I think it goes across every single subcommittee in the council as well as council itself, is the poly use. Cannabis is a big issue now, because now it's poly drug use. You know, you're drinking, you're smoking, speeding, recklessness, multiple times getting arrested for that. So people that are getting tickets multiple times for speeding or aggressive driving or DUI, and everyone feels that it's got to be a harsher action taken on them, because too many people are just getting away with it too many times. So hopefully the ISA is a big approach for them. And you can go to the next slide here. I think there's one more. Oh no, that's it. Okay. So as recommendations go, legislatively, and I think this is been echoed by all the subcommittees, is funding of Vision Zero initiative. There's got to be some type of budgetary put in place so that anybody that is trying to do these Vision Zero initiatives has a resource. You know, unfunded mandates don't help anybody, because then you have to struggle to try to find a resource for that. Limited access highway speed cameras. We know there's a study, and interested in to see what that will be. And I know the Department of Transportation, I think, is the process of that study. And we would like to see that use. Enhanced enforcement funding in high-risk zones. We think that it's great to have the law enforcement visible out on the roadways and seeing, you know, them with their lights on and a bunch of cars pulled over, because that visual means a lot. So, but they need funding for that. You can't just, the budgetary constraints in municipals and in state and the staffing. So you gotta come up, we agree that we need to do something more with that. Establishment of safety corridors, echoed through every subcommittee, that with the establishment of safety corridors, we think that that would be something we should be looking at. Amend public act concerning non-safety related traffic stops. This was something interesting that came up through Chief Costa in discussion. The new law currently allows rear plates and rear windows. Don't know exactly why that happened and that got put into the legislation, but there's concerns raised from the law enforcement side about that, and also with the automated traffic enforcement. Is that a way of getting away? So that's something I think that needs to be looked at. We support every recommendation by every other subcommittee. Intelligent speed assistance. There's a lot of discussion on that. I will be at the meeting on Friday, and I got some comments back that I forwarded to Aaron. Another important thing, equity and driver training. Explore subsidies for access to driver education programs, including in schools. We think that getting back to that dynamic and trying to maybe bring some kid to the schools to be able to do that driver training education, like happened many years ago, would be a positive, and it would allow, I think, a better education platform, and also would allow kids that can't afford to spend that kind of money at a school to get the education. So that was one of the other things. More messaging campaigns. I kudos to Connecticut DOT and some others on left lane camping and some other things. My dear friend, Paul Rizzo, is doing a wonderful job on certain things, but I think we need to do more. We just need to get it out there more, because I don't think, we as a group don't think that somehow it's just not connected with the public. They just aren't, because if they were, they wouldn't be doing some of the things that they're doing. So we think that we have to get super aggressive on the campaign. Violators of vulnerable user and work zone laws be charged with those violations, ensuring these charges are being cited and fines imposed. That's to do with endangerment of a highway worker, aggravated endangerment of a highway worker, and act concerning the penalty for causing harm to a vulnerable user of a public way. We think that sometimes there's a big list of maybe charges against a person, and then some of them take precedent over others when it comes to prosecution. So we think that those charges should be taken, and as always, ensure alignment with the state strategic highway safety plan and its emphasis areas, so that we're all jointly. Further study, continue to track the implementation of the red light and speed cameras. That'll be a mission of this subcommittee. And someone commented if there's states researching into other states and countries, how they've reduced the speeding phenomenon, and doing that through either enforcement or other strategies. Driver re-education and DMV curriculum updates. I know you said that you've talked with DMV on some of the driver manuals and about, we see that maybe there potentially a working group could be created so that there could be a review, and then we ensure that some of the information that we don't think is currently in the manual gets in the manual, and we don't know exactly who deals with the driver education manual, and also the companies that do the driver education, to make sure that their curriculum is up to date. And that's it for me. And then Aaron's mission is to find 2 chairs for the subcommittee, because I am officially gone as of the end of this year. But I will stay on the task force, but not in the position.
Thank you, Terry.
You're welcome.
Hi, everyone. So for this past quarter, we worked to review the costs and hardships for the ISAs, and there wasn't a whole lot of data to go off of that, but one of the things we talked about was looking at our current programs we have, especially with the ignition interlock device. So with that program, advertised on the website is a financial hardship area, but DMV said that it isn't or might not be being utilized. So Yvonne's going to look into that with her team and give us a one-page overview for how it's laid out on their website. It's a aid through Department of Service where you have to prove hardship. And then potentially the vendors are working to give financial incentives for those devices. With that program, there is a monthly cost to keep the system updated. And if you miss a month, you get fined for it. So we're gonna look at what the overall cost is and prepare something that shows, like, if you get a DUI and you go through this program, what the actual cost is for a violator. And then the second part was looking at the safety courses for violators. So we're working with the state attorney's office to understand if prosecutors are using the offender course and what that's looking like. And then for our resources, our first fact sheet that we are focusing on with education and engineering is the sidewalks. So we've been working with the Complete Streets Committee to have a similar to what Federal Highway has for the countermeasures, but in a manner that the public can see, so less words and more Connecticut examples.
Just a couple things to add. One on the safety courses. I think the legislation in 2023 suggested or offered prosecutors the ability to use like offense specific safety courses as part of the plea deal. And I don't know that that's happening, but I think that the work zone and move over course, which was passed this year, will hopefully be a good model for other offense specific courses that can be used in the future. One other thing that we heard as well about seatbelts, because I know the 2023 bill also said to do seatbelt education in communities that had lower rates of usage. Had a conversation about both seatbelts and child passenger safety, and how in some cases there's less interest in showing up to big child passenger safety events due to external factors. So, and a lot of that is where some of that one-on-one seatbelt education is taking place, as well as the child passenger safety education. So if there are ways to replicate kind of one-on-one conversations, I know the Connecticut Police Chiefs Association has worked on something like that for traffic stops. Maybe something like that could be done for seatbelts, because a lot of the discussion is about, habits, or you're just going up for a couple minutes. It's a short trip on local roads. Why do you need to buckle up? So finding ways to replicate those one-on-one conversations for seatbelt education, but expand that a little bit more broadly would be helpful.
Thank you. Next up is education. Amy?
Hello, everybody. Update from the Education Committee. The new work zone safety course that is a recent request this year, and that work is underway. It will be live in January 2026. And it'll be split into two courses. One is for new drivers and one will be for offenders. Also has been in place for a few months now is the video license renewal. That video has been created and it's available on a few different sources, including the website. And finally, as recapped earlier in the meeting, the Vision Zero Schools of Distinction, we're going on, I believe this is the third year, we'll be recognizing some schools. So that is moving ahead as well. Next slide. So for our recommendations, we've had these language recommendations to the School of Distinction law We've been sending that through. I don't think any of those changes have been made in order to make things more clear, more in line with how the program's being implemented. So we have those, which we will submit again. We support funding for Vision Zero initiatives as mentioned. We endorse the motorcycle helmet law and the lowering the VAC to 0.05%. We also, when we do our final recommendations, we will be supporting NCA, the establishment of safety corridors and the pre-reduced cost for runners and as well as any recommendations that we see come through from these committees. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Council members? I appreciate all the hard work that went into that. Go to the next slide. So we're going to take what the subcommittees have prepared. As with last year, the report that we submit at the end of the year is going to be a similar format where we're going to take subcommittee reports on their area of focus and policy recommendations. We'll include that information in what we submit to the legislature so they can see details on the various meetings of the subcommittees, the areas of focus, and the policy recommendation. And that goes to the chairs of the Transportation Committee, the full Transportation Committee, and follows the normal legislative missions process, goes to the state library and those entities. So if the goal is to get that to Aaron in January, so we can get it wrapped up and submitted. This is a short legislative session, so they start the first week of February, right, Liz? Yes. And so we want to make sure to get it to them in advance of their convening for their first Transportation Committee meeting. And so we will reach out to the co-chairs Aaron's going to reach out to all the co-chairs on details on like deadlines and some information. So next, that's what we just talked about. So before we wrap up today, want to just end with if any agency wants to give a shout out for anything that you've accomplished this year related to safety. Try to end with some good news in this holiday season. So for our partners online from other state agencies, start thinking about what you might want to highlight. I will highlight a couple things on my end. One is I didn't realize Greg and Jordan were going to do the Complete Streets updates. So thank you for covering that. So this one here is Bridgeport Route 130 and Fairfield Avenue. So this came about from one of our one of the legislators in Bridgeport, Representative Staffstrom, who really wanted to see some safety improvements on Fairfield Avenue. So our team here at ConnDOT worked to develop some quick builds that could be implemented, ran them past the city of Bridgeport and the council member representing the area, got their sign off. And so we went and executed this and took the lieutenant governor and Representative Staffstrom on a tour this summer, walking tour of the area to show the benefits. And this really does represent some of what we've been pushing here at ConnDOT for several years now, which is attempts to daylight crosswalks, especially mid-block crosswalks where cars were parking very close to those crosswalks. So a pedestrian would be walking between two vehicles to approach that crosswalk and not be able to be seen by vehicles passing. So this is, I think, helpful in demonstrating the benefits of daylighting those crosswalks. This is another picture here as we have crosswalks at a signalized intersection and creating more buffer there. Next, another one, Fairfield Avenue. Yep, and we are here, and I'll take control of that. Sorry. This one here. So there is an RFB there. We are going to do enhanced and move around RFBs to make them a little more visible. Some of them are hidden a little bit for drivers who can't see them when they're flashing. They might be behind a tree or not as far up ahead as we'd like. So that's something that Representative Staffstrom brought up. So we're working. They were installed a little bit weird than we would traditionally do, where they're like encased in concrete underneath, and so we can't really do the normal retrofit that we would easily be able to do with any utility poles. So we're working on that. So, thank you to the traffic engineering team for all the hard work on this. Also, State of New Haven has another legislative priority. Senator Looney, Representative Lamar for a long time, and Representative Paolillo brought up this issue for a long time. How can we reduce extreme speeding on Foxen Boulevard, Route 80 in New Haven? So we worked with the city engineer, Giovanni Zinn, to come up with something we could all agree on. So our team here at ConnDOT worked closely with the city as well as city's traffic team, but largely city's engineering team on this design, and ConnDOT paid for it, but the city executed the installation and construction of these improvements. So as we heard, medians and speed tables. There's another close up. And these are the types of projects that we're looking for municipalities to come to us on, and how we can collaborate, you know, where their priorities are to make safety improvements on state roads that pass through their communities. Here's the installation underway. And this just happened 2 days ago. So I got some great videos from the field too, of people passing over it. So any other agencies want to highlight anything? I do want to thank State Police for partnerships that we've had over the past several months on enhanced awareness around slow down, move over laws. So thank you for State Police and DMV Police as well for their partnership in heightened enforcement. But I'll turn it over to you.
Would you like us to come up, Commissioner, or can we stay right here?
It's up to you.
We'll come up, sir. Thank you, sir. Excuse my voice, I've been a little sick as of late. I'm Alex Cintron, Lieutenant of the Traffic Services Unit in the State Police. This is my admin right-hand man, Ryan Sawicki. We just want to go down and run rundown of some numbers that we have for essentially end year stuff. State Police in its entirety have clocked in at, since yesterday, end of business, 86,014 traffic stops. As a result, 36,337 infractions were issued, 30,597 written warnings were issued, 14,238 verbal warnings were issued, just a little over 1,500 misdemeanors, 934 arrests were result of those 86,000 traffic stops. More specifically, the Traffic Services Unit, which works very closely with DOT for the implementation of the grants by virtue of Mr. Joe Cristalli. He has been one of the spearheads to get us some funding, which, as we know, is the lifeblood of the State Police, unfortunately. But he has been trying to spearhead the procurement and allocation of some monies for us, as well as projects such as a Batmobile for our breath alcohol testing mobilization. But the unit in and of itself wrote 10,600, well, excuse me, had 10,622 traffic stops, 6,174 infractions were issued, 1,865 written warnings, 1,333 verbal warnings, 20 arrests resulted out of those. And again, those are directly tied into a lot of the highway safety monies, because we are kind of the ones that work most of those grants. In terms of fatal instances coming off of November, knock on wood, it was tied number one for the lowest month, tied with March at 9. And although that isn't zero, it's trending downward. Our CARS unit, our collision reconstructionists, were called out just under 7% less this year than they were last year. So, you know, we're working our way towards what that Vision Zero means. Our deadliest month so far was January, unfortunately, with 21 fatalities, closely followed by July at 19. So it's just weird, you know, you try to aim your enforcement efforts or whatnot, but here we go midwinter with 21 and then midsummer with 19. So what we do is our unit, along with our CARS unit, our construction guys, we assess the stats. We try to come up with those high priority, high collision, high catastrophic areas, and then we implement a lot of the funding from Mr. Cristalli or our enforcement efforts with the road in those areas to mitigate as much incidents as we can. Sometimes it's tough, but we're trying to do what we can to piggyback off that enforcement initiative that we just did, the holiday enforcement initiative with the move over and whatnot. We worked with DOT, Mr. Paul Rizzo's office, and DMV, and it totaled out for the week of Thanksgiving at 620 traffic stops, 528 infractions, 71 warnings, and 4 arrests, 1 being a misdemeanor. Of note, there was a illegal firearm recovered in one of those traffic stops, and we actually, I think, was the first instance, if I'm not mistaken, of us writing that new general statute for endangering a highway worker. We had a gentleman try to avoid the traffic stop, whip into the pattern, in and out through the cone patterns. They ended up boxing him in a way and conducted that arrest. So he faced a slew of charges, but we did put to work that new 14-212 statute. Thank you. So we are hoping to turn around, start the clock again in January, get out there in those places that were needed. Work hand in hand with you guys. I've been in Anchorage a little bit of Mr. Cristalli's efforts for the Batmobile, but he's working to get us mobilized with that so that we can go out and conduct more DUI checkpoints and just keep conducting those regular interventions that we can. And again, we appreciate the partnerships with you guys, can do without you guys. And then if anybody has anything going down the road, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you guys.
Anything from the council members online that you want to add from your agency stuff? Okay, so then I'll go right into the next steps. As we mentioned, the ISA report is due to the General Assembly next month. So there will be a meeting next week to talk through and ask some more questions about it and finalize the plans for that. There is the annual report to the General Assembly in February. So Aaron will be sending out information to the subcommittee chairs, and then we will send out information to the council members for review of that report, and then we'll get your sign off electronically on that submission. We will be preparing the survey of when we can hold our quarterly meetings in 2026, and we'll be seeking a specific topic that you want covered in meetings in 2026 as well. So start thinking about any issues that you'd like to have covered or get more information on or broaden the scope. I will also talk to the chairs and ranking members of the Transportation Committee and see if there are specific topics of interest they want us to focus on in 2026. So before we turn it over for public comment, I do want to do 2 things. One, I want to just have a big round of applause for Terry Thompson for her years of service. Everything you've done for safety. Just remember you have the DOT mascot living on in your memory, so thank you for everything. And I do want to give a big shout out to Katie Hedberg Close. She received a national award a few weeks ago for her work on the Empathy at the Intersection initiative, which aims to teach designers, planners, transportation professionals how to think about others who have mobility impairments and other impairments or disabilities, how to incorporate their life experiences in the designs that we're doing to change our infrastructure. So congratulations. We're going to go over to public comment. So Aaron, I'll let you, I'll stand up here.
Just a reminder, if anyone, if any of the attendees want to speak and have a question, and we'll call on you. Any other in-person questions, we can prioritize them. Not seeing anything. I guess we covered it all.
I'll say if there are any meeting attendees who do have topics they want covered in 2026 as well, they should submit that to us via email. Erin and I can work to try and incorporate those meeting topics. Not seeing any, then we will go ahead and I'll move to adjourn the meeting. So I appreciate everyone for all the hard work this year. Stay safe, and we'll see you some of you next week. Thank you, everyone.